Welcome to Food Trinks.
Welcome to Food Trinks. I'm Molly Carmel,
I'm Clarissa Kennedy.
And I'm Molly Painschab.
and we are your Food Trinks. We are three eating disorder and addiction therapists. We walk the walk, but we're also real life friends, and we are here to share our honesty, our humor, and our unfiltered conversations that we have when nobody is recording, except for today. We're recording. And we and we are recording before we got into our pre-show. We are really learning something here at Food Trinks because we want to give you a real unfiltered idea. Today, we are talking about overwhelm and boundaries. Clarissa, take it away.
Yeah, I struggle with this, and I struggle with this. I think I've been reading this book, Are You Mad at Me? And it's by Meg Johnson, and it's about the fawn response. And so the fawn response gets me into a state of overwhelm because I have a hard time setting boundaries, saying no. And it's professionally, it's personally, it's even harder when it's personally and professionally. So, like at the beginning of the show, Molly C asked me if I could carve out some time to just do this little intro for this intro video. And I've already referred clients out. I've already, basically said no to so many things. And I already found myself, I think at the end of the conversation saying, maybe I could find a little bit of time. So it's so quickly and how quickly it shifts, even though I said all the reasons why I am needing this. But again, it's like also over explaining why this boundary needs to be in place. So maybe you won't be mad at me when I do say no, rather than just saying, no, I'm sorry, that's not going to work. And let's look at the end of September when I get back from vacation.
I run a lot of groups on codependency. I think it's so much of what fuels our eating. It's so much of why we turn to food. Like for me, especially like when saying yes when we mean no, saying no when we mean yes, like trying to appease other people. That's really where mine
Yeah.
comes in, and it feels, codependency and the stuff we're talking about here feels so similar to addiction to me, largely
Mm-hmm.
because I find myself doing it without my permission. Like
Yeah. Well, it's a trauma response.
it's such a trauma response. And that appeasement, the fawn response and polyvagal, they like demand you call it appeasement. They hate that word. Polyvagal trauma treatment, which I'm trained in. But, like it really makes sense, right? Because it's like you are trying to make sure the other person doesn't kill or attack you. Like if you want to get like down to the bare
Mm-hmm.
bones of it. And I found myself doing this the other day. Like I have a friend coming to visit and they were like not sure if they could come, right? And I went into like such hardcore appeasement. Like, okay, well, like maybe we can leave later. Like maybe we can, and then I'm like so revved up. I'm so hungry. And it's not,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sort of like watching it. And I actually called someone in my power circle about it. And they're like, Molly, you're actually infuriated right now. And you're disappointed in somebody making a decision that you don't like. And I was like, floored.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, actually, that's true. And here I am, like, people pleasing the other person, like, oh, yeah, like, we can leave later if you can. And like, it would just happen that they would come here and then I would feel more people pleasing. And guess what happens? I don't know if this happens to you, Clarissa. This turns into such enormous levels of resentment and anger. And
Mm-hmm.
and my anger coming out sideways in all of my relationships when I get into these kinds of dynamics.
Oh, yeah. It happens for me mostly in like intimate relationships. I start like giving up my needs, or saying like, I'm fine doing with what I'm easy, I'm flexible, I'll do whatever you want to do. And then, the weekend's over and I'm like, I didn't actually get to do anything I wanted to do. And it makes so much sense, right? Because, those trauma responses are sympathetic responses. So fawn is just as like, sympathetic equals stress. And what works really well to put us in parasympathetic is food, that peace state. So of course we want to use the food to help us regulate after we've been in stress the whole weekend, micromanaging, hypervigilance, looking for cues or signs of like, oh, this person is disappointed in me. Oh, this is what this person is actually thinking because I noticed like the way they did this, like nonverbal cues. And it's just really hard to relax or be at ease when we're so busy taking care of other people. And what I do is like I fawn first in relationship, and then I'm like, this is too hard, and I run. See you later. This won't work for me.
I think it's also about, not knowing. Marsha Linehan, who created DBT, always says that a lot of times it's like a skill deficit. And I know for me, I was never taught to ask for what I wanted. Like I was, because my needs were never met. So I'm always like hedging my ask, almost like what happened between us, right? Like I'm like, can you do this thing? I mean, I experienced it through my own lens. Like you're like, well, maybe I can, but I probably can't. But I don't want you to be upset. But then I'm going to get angry, which is just like that's how like my whole life, right? Like
that
I
was
really
exactly
can't, right? Like I really can't. But I'm really scared. So maybe I can. But if I can, I'm probably going to be so mad at you. Like this is how I go through my life a
right.
lot.
But you know what was so interesting is I felt like what I was saying wasn't good enough. And then I also noticed I was like, Benson's dying right now. And I
Yeah.
was like, I know that'll be the thing
It gets me.
that will shut down the pressure. But
Yeah.
isn't that wild? I mean, it's not, it's true,
That's her dog.
but
For those of you not
yeah.
on board, that's her little puppy who's
And
also
so
dying.
I'm like have all this time, like a limited amount of 2 week time before I go on vacation. I want to see clients. I want to do work, but I also really need to spend time with him. Um, but it was like, I felt pushed to say that, like my no didn't feel good enough.
So
But you never
we need to
necessarily,
slow that down for the listener. That she's saying that
yeah.
just saying no to the thing I was asking wasn't enough, and she had to escalate the no to be. I mean, by the way, it did shut me down for what it's worth. Like, because that's the problem too, because it's effective.
But
So
exactly, there is an adaptive aspect to this. It's adaptive and it can be maladaptive.
yeah, it's like at the core of it is I'll speak from like it's like it's so hard for me to just say this is what I want
Hmm.
and then muzzle myself.
Yeah,
And if you can't,
right.
it's okay. We can leave at 9. We don't have to leave at 7. And if you don't want to come, it's okay too. Like, don't worry about it, right? It's like, Lord have mercy on my soul.
No, because I was also, when I was saying these things, I was watching your face to see how you were reacting and responding to
Wait,
my
what was your
no.
perception of it? Because I think it might not be accurate.
Yeah, my perception was my no is like not enough. She's like really needs me to find time.
Not true.
Right.
Maybe it's just a podcast, It's okay.
Yeah. But that's where
It's
it's
not
like,
nuclear war codes.
right. We need these experiences to be like, and I like before I'd be like, oh, what's wrong with you? Why you did that? And now I'm like, oh, of course you did that, right? Molly's your friend. You want to let her know this podcast is really important to you. You want her to know it's a priority. And like, does that mean something about the friendship? And like, it just becomes so big
Yeah.
that, of course, I say yes and go against my no.
No, no. Like, he's been like silent. So I'll just say one more thing, but we could probably do a whole podcast. Have you guys ever seen the drama triangle?
No.
No.
Oh, I have to look it up. So MP, like, I mean, the drama triangle, it like definitely, I just forget this because I'm in perimenopause. I forget one of the words on the triangle. So I just have to look it up. The Karpman drama triangle. Okay.
Okay.
It basically It's just, you can all Google it, but basically says we come in and rescue, right? Which is what you were doing right there. You were sort of saying,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to set aside my limits and my values. I'm going to rescue Molly right now. Molly C, because
Mm-hmm.
she wants to do something in a time frame that doesn't really work for me. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
you can use rescue in any way you want.
Yeah.
After the rescue comes the persecutor because it makes us really angry. And it should,
Yes. Yes, I
because we
would be.
crossed our own limits.
I know I would have been really mad at you had I actually gone against myself.
Wait, do you want to hear the third one? Because it's really painful.
Oh, yes, I
And
can.
then we turn victim.
Mm.
Can you believe I have so much to do? And she made me, like all of us, all of us, all
Right.
of us.
Well,
Can
and
you
I feel
believe he just won't come at 7 o'clock and blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, yeah, because you're people pleasing him and not telling him exactly what you want.
right. And that probably feels really gross. And then I want to change how I feel. So I'm going to go eat over it or I'm going to go
Absolutely.
do something. Yeah.
The Karpman drama triangle is life.
Mm.
And it's from like 100, it's from 1968. MP, what's up?
I'm just practicing my boundaries because everything in me wanted to like jump in there and like put myself between the two of you and be like, you got to go through me to get to her. You know, like that's my mentalities. I go into fight and I'm like, come at me. And it wasn't even that kind of situation. You know, that's just the thing. It's like that's where my nervous system goes though, is, you know, I'm listening to a person that I love very much say no, and no should be a complete sentence and no should be enough. But we live in a society, we live in a society where no is not enough.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, for the person saying no. And so then we do have to come back with these justifications. Like we're constantly, especially, I feel like a man would be able to get away with saying no. But as women, we are conditioned that that's not enough. It's going to always be the push. Are you sure? You're the caretaker. That's your role. You know, women's currency is relationship a lot of times. And I'm not trying to paint in broad brushstrokes. Like certainly that isn't true for everybody. But I think, you know, that's a point of contention in so many relationships, whether it be between two women, between women and men, whatever it might be, that we are taught over and over and over again that our no is not enough. And that, you know, and other people are taught, yeah, if you just ask, if you just keep asking, or you keep asking in a different way, they're eventually going to give you what you want. And standing firm in that is so hard. It feels so uncomfortable. Like I'm watching this thing play out and my body's getting hot. You know, and so I'm practicing my boundaries of keeping my mouth shut because again, my boundary busting would have been like, jump in there. Like it's none of my business what's happening right here, you know, or whatever, because my answer was the same. I don't have the time between now and when we leave either to do some of these things that are being asked of us to do. And that just would have been it, is I just would have been like, yeah, I've got nothing. And whatever would have come of that would have come of that. But I think, you know, for me, I lived my life for other people for so long. And exactly what you just described, Molly C, was, you know, that, you know, then it would get to that victim place and I would be like, here I am yet again, like nothing left in the tank for me. Like there's not even leftovers for me. I'm like on so past negative in my internal balance that, you know, of course, then like, what's my outcome? I'm a person who's highly prone to depression and anxiety. Well, then no wonder I can't ever like stabilize that because I'm constantly just overperforming, overgiving, overproducing, you know, over acquiescing, whatever it might be. And so, yeah, it's a daily practice, right? It's a daily practice of like, yeah, I'm not going to respond to every single text message. I'll respond to emails when I can. I'll respond to messages when I can, but my schedule is my schedule. And if I don't maintain that, nobody else is going to, right? My husband isn't going to show up and say, you know, honey, you've been working so much, so long, and you do all these things. I'm going to respect that you probably need a break. I mean, I think he would. He probably would, but I like in those moments, no, because we're all just like, this is what I want or need to have done. Let's do it. And how can we make it happen? So we have to do it. We have to protect our energy, our space, our lives, our choices, our whatever, because nobody else is going to show up and do it for us. They're just not. I heard one time, givers give and takers take. And it is up to the giver to put the boundary in because the takers will always take.
Yeah. I had a boss who would say that to me, who I was so workaholic with, and he would like looked at me like an abuser, like I'm never gonna ask you to work less. Like I was,
They
yeah,
won't. They won't.
he won't.
They won't. They
He's like,
won't
why
ask
would
you to
I?
work less.
Right?
Right, 100%. If you're always going to say yes and you're always going to be there and you're always the
Right.
reliable one, we don't have to worry about you. You're going to show up if you're sick. You're going to show up when you're right. Like,
Yeah. And especially when you don't have, at the time I was so addicted and I didn't have a sense of self. That was my entire sense of self, was that job. And like, you know, I was kind of like screaming at him, like I'm working so hard. And he just looked at me like, never gonna ask you to work less. That's a you problem, not a me problem.
And does that want to be what your legacy is? She worked
Right.
so hard,
It took
right?
me a decade. It took me a decade to even wrap my head around my part in that. You know, I was such a victim. I was like, can you believe? And it's like, yeah, now I can on this end of it.
Right. And it
Yeah.
was like my anger. I'd be like so mad at these people who would have such great boundaries and be taking time for themselves when they needed it. And like that was like fueling my anger. And it was really just jealous that I like abandoned myself all the time when I need these things.
100%. I actually, one of the most eye-opening experiences I had was this. I love her to death. She was like one of the best supervisors I've ever had. And I was probably 22, 23. I mean, we're talking like 20 years ago. She pulled me into her office and we were like kind of having this back and forth. I'm, of course, just like bawling. And I'm working in corrections at this time. So, you know, think about like your trauma history and then like you're with a bunch of people with significant trauma history. And if you're not just a walking wound, you're like, I don't know. But so I'm in there, I'm bawling. And like it gets really silent on her part. And she just looks at me and she says, Molly, are you Jesus Christ? And that question alone, I was like my brain could not compute what was happening. I'm like, what did you just ask me? Did you really, what? Like clear, what? And I was like, no. And she literally said, then you need to get off the cross.
Yeah. I was like, no, I'm Mother Teresa.
Pardon me. Gender pronouns.
But you know, and I'm not saying that is like the most appropriate way to go about doing any of this, but at the time, it clearly had this huge impression on me. And it was one of the reasons why I even got into therapy was because it was made so clear to me that I was doing this pattern that you just described, Molly, you know, that I was saying yes to things that internally I really wanted to say no to, that I was continuously showing up and putting myself into these situations saying, you know, I will just be the sacrificial lamb if it means that the people standing behind me don't get hurt. Like I said, my initial reaction was I wanted to be, if we would have been in a physical space, I would have had a hard time not putting myself physically between the two of you. Right. So it's, oh yeah, I don't know.
But I
It's
also
interesting.
think there's this other layer to it where it's like just me being really uncomfortable with sitting with my emotions. And the emotion that I'm most uncomfortable sitting with is guilt.
Yeah.
And guilt is just a feeling.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, in DBT, we say there's two kinds of guilt, justified and unjustified.
Sure.
And it's just always such a good moment when I'm feeling guilty to be like, if this is justified guilt, I need to repair.
Yeah.
If this is unjustified guilt, I need to move on with my merry day. You know?
Right.
Yeah. I read something about like the degree to which we feel probably the unjustified guilt, right? The degree to which we feel that is directly proportional to the degree in which we self-abandon or have been taught to.
Here I am.
Yeah.
Right. So when we show up with that boundary and we're like, no, and then we feel guiltier and guiltier and guiltier, it's because we're not doing the self-abandon pattern, which feels more familiar to our nervous system, therefore is quote unquote feeling more safe.
I feel like I need to send this podcast to my client like right after it. Like this can't even wait a week.
We can't even wait for release date.
And myself. So
Yeah.
wait, I said it's already time for takeaways. Can you believe it?
Yeah.
Who has a takeaway? I have so many.
Oh, I think for me, my takeaway is that, you know, just because again, like I'm learning and growing in this, there actually was so many times this week that I said no, where in the past I would have said yes. And so there's a lot of progress here.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean that sometimes it's still going to be overridden. And it's not like, oh, you're broken, you're never going to get it right. It's like, oh, this was another example. I get curious, like what was different? Oh, before was clients, before was like, outside stuff. This was the combination of work and friend. Ooh, that's a doozy for me. So it's like a signal for these kind of situations in the future to be a little bit more mindful.
It's really good.
Yeah. I think it's a good reminder for me that like, no matter how many years of, quote unquote therapy I have under my belt, no matter how many opportunities in any given day I get to practice this, that there are still going to be those situations that just my nervous system just lights up, right? And that I can slow down and just be the observer, that if I can just get quiet and let it kind of play out for a little bit, that then I can get that 100-foot view and see the pattern and make a more wise mind choice. And this was just like a really good, like just watching it all play out. Like I'm grateful, like it was therapeutic for me. So, just getting to be an observer, but yeah, that reminder of like, oh, anytime that unjustified guilt shows up, like, oh, is that self-abandonment again? Just getting to be curious about it. So what about you, Molly?
That's actually I have like three, but my first is this unjustified guilt linking in with abandoning myself is like, I need to like go journal and sleep on it and think about it. And like, it's just it's really powerful. I love learning things from my friends. And just, it's like, gosh, the universe is always with me. It's like, this is also something like I'm really actively dealing with right now because I really noticed in that vacation thing, like, I really had just abandoned myself and appeased without my own permission. And I love, like, it's coming up again. It's coming up again. It's coming up to heal. But my takeaway really isn't a takeaway. It's just like a ponderance, which is like, I used to be such like a, like a wet blanket. And I would have just, and like a lot of like what Clarissa was saying, like, I've really worked hard to like challenge someone's no. Like really worked hard because so much of my life was like, oh, okay, great. Oh, you said no. Okay, right. Like, and so it's like, what's the line of like respecting someone's no versus like negotiating a no? Like, that's where I'm really thinking. Like, I don't feel like I did anything wrong to be like, is there I've worked so hard on that in my own like self-love and my own worth to say like, any negotiation in there, which like before I'd be like, okay, yeah, sorry, I'm sorry, I'm alive. I'm sorry, I am. Part of my self-growth is like, I don't know, like we find 5 minutes, can I help? Like, and so I maybe it's another podcast to be honest, but like, that's really like my final thought, which is what's the line between respecting someone's no and negotiating someone's no for my own self? We'll leave you with that.
We'll leave you with that. So if you want to hear more on this topic or anything else, if you have questions that you want us to answer, please, please, please feel free to email us at asktheshrinks@foodtrinks.com.
And if you like what we had to say today and you want to hear more, please subscribe, give us a rating. We love 5 stars, and share this episode with a friend. And we'll see you next week.
Yay! Bye. Thanks for listening to Food Shrinks. Quick reminder, this podcast isn't a substitute for professional medical advice. Always consult your healthcare provider for guidance suited to your needs. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, share, and subscribe to help us reach others on the recovery journey. Take care, and remember, freedom with food is possible. See you next time.